This is Paola Harris, an independent investigative journalist in the UFO field. I videotaped Clifford Stone at his home in Roswell, New Mexico on October 2nd, 2011. I think this homemade amateur video is very important because it shows Clifford answering questions that all of us would like to ask him in his home. These questions are part of a book that I have helped Clifford put together that's called The Clifford Stone Story, Eyes Only, the Story of Crash Retrieval. I think that it's very important for the reader to also hear Clifford in his own words tell the story. Clifford Stone is a hero. He's a military man. He's known as a whistleblower. He was part of the Disclosure Project in Washington, D.C., 2001 under Dr. Stephen Greer. This man's testimony will be history in the future. And I hope that this video of his speaking is part of the archive of this history. Clifford Stone, like so many other witnesses, have led us to the truth about the UFO phenomenon, that we are not alone in the universe.
The craft went down, it should have crashed and been all over the jungle floor. But it was like some giant hand just picked it up and just set it down. It was cut into 3 sections and the wings were cut off. And they used the, I think they called them the Cranes. They were weird looking helicopters that could carry a lot of cargo, and they actually had like a box car that fit underneath of it, or they could remove that box car and just had like a crane connection to it, and that's what they used to remove that aircraft because they wanted to go over that aircraft with a fine-tooth comb.
Who's they?
The U.S. government.
Okay. And so this was a strange aircraft that came down and they cut, who cut?
No, this was not. This was a B-52.
Okay, all right, but this was it was strange in the way they found it.
It was strange because it was still intact, with the exception of the damage that was done by the shrapnel that, I don't know for a fact, but I'd say a missile, like a SAM missile hitting.
Yeah.
Other than that damage that was done to it, and everyone being dead, but that was as a result of, you still had ack fire, and there was indications because it started to lose altitude.
So then let's go back, and so you were part of that group to went to investigate that, and they made you take all your chevrons and everything off, right?
Yes.
And didn't tell you ahead of time where you were going?
They didn't tell us where we were going. They didn't tell us where we were at. When we got there, it was dark. I now know where we landed at. We landed at Benoit.
But where did you leave from? Germany?
No, we left from the United States.
Oh, you did? So
Oh,
you went
yeah.
across the ocean?
Mm-hmm.
You left from the United
yeah.
States?
Oh, yeah. They told us that we were going on an FTX, which is a field training exercise. And we were supposed to be going to Florida.
Oh. And so when you got off, you realized you weren't in Florida?
One guy, when we landed to refuel, normally it's a requirement that you get off the airplane while it refuels. They told all of us we stay on the airplane. And everybody stayed on the airplane. So we stayed on the airplane. One guy looked out, and one guy said, "If this isn't Oakland, I will kiss your hindside." At which time the person I always called the colonel immediately said, and pulled out his .45. We didn't have the 9mm in. It was still the .45.
Do you remember the year?
11. Yeah, it was 1969.
Okay.
And he pulled it out and he says, "The next person that opens their mouth will become a non-issue because I will not hesitate to shoot. You will be briefed when we're airborne again." So...
Is this the colonel, the same colonel that met you when you were 19?
Mm-hmm.
So this colonel took you under his wing from the minute you were 19 till you did whatever the last job you did was. And this colonel was in charge, you believe, or it seems, of the ET reality.
He was one of the top people because he was always there.
He was always there.
But he was very dedicated to what he did.
So he had to mentor you and the others.
Oh yeah. And, you know,
He cultivated.
I think he was actually assigned directly to me.
Oh.
That he was to follow me throughout.
When did you see him for the first time?
The first time I saw him was right after
Year? How old?
it was in 1969.
And you were?
And at that time I was what, 18, 19?
Okay.
But this is, see, I went in 68.
Mm-hmm.
And in 68, while I was there at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, that's where I had the individual that started to expose me to all the pictures and the stuff. And I'm sitting back saying, I don't think I should be seeing this. I knew what top secret meant, but I had no idea what top secret. And there was like a line, a backslash as we call it now. Then there was a word, and sometimes two words, sometimes three words.
Was it cosmic top secret or?
Cosmic is the highest
Right.
SCI, or Sensitive Compartment Information, caveat in Europe or in NATO. So that's a caveat. I didn't know it at the time. But the intent of that particular word, our group of words, was to ensure that only with people with a strict need to know would even see these documents, are the photographs. Because there were photographs.
There were photographs of what?
There were photographs of various craft, of entities.
There were entities also.
Yeah.
That must have blew your mind to see entities, photographs of entities.
Yeah, but see, at the time I still wasn't for sure what I was looking at.
Okay.
And, the big question was this a test? Was this a joke of some sort? And I did know for a fact, with it having top secret, that I definitely wasn't supposed to see it, because at that time...
Okay.
I
You didn't have... Well, just a really quick question, then we'll go back to Vietnam. When was the last time you saw this, Colonel?
The last time I saw this colonel was probably a couple years after I got out of the military.
Did you see this colonel before or after Robert died?
Robert?
Your son.
Oh. No, I got a call from him.
You did?
Yeah, I've gotten calls from him, but never...
And did he call
face-to-face.
just to give you condolences, or...?
Oh, well, there was big concern about it when Robert died.
Mm-hmm.
Right up front, there was a cover-up about the death of my son.
Oh, there was.
Yeah. But I think that right there was more to do with trying to protect the woman that hit my son, which she told the truth in her statement.
Mm-hmm.
But the person who was head of the traffic division at that time was also a minister.
Mm-hmm.
And she went to the church where he went. And they had to go ahead and call in a crisis management team and brought him there at Goddard High School, because my son was very popular, and there was a lot of people that they felt might need assistance. So the state provided that team. And there were a lot of kids that showed up over there. Well, I went over there. And the person that was head of the motor vehicle department at the time, actually his parents owned this house, believe it or not. He lived here at this house. And he says he had a friend that got killed in a motorcycle that lived here with him at that time. But he said the car was right there. Well, where the car was, there were two pickup trucks. Where he says the car was, there were two pickup trucks. The reason I know that, I was the first any type of law enforcement to respond on the scene.
So the pickup trucks are what's suspect?
Well, no, the pickup truck stopped to help.
Oh, they did.
And
yeah, I don't want to go off too much.
Right here is the whole report as to what really happened.
Okay.
And
what is the bottom line here? Do you think it was programmed?
No, I think that the woman actually accidentally hit my son.
Okay.
But when I went to go and tell my wife about what had happened, the police officers taking me, there was an APB that was put out, and they were looking for a small blue pickup truck with three young males in it.
Okay.
And at that time, the story was getting out that somebody had taken a stick with a nail on the end of it and put it through the spokes to cause the motorcycle to wreck, which was totally untrue. But at that time, that's what was coming out over the police radio.
Okay.
And I know for a fact in Vietnam, you would have politically sanctioned assassinations. And one of the ways you would do that, because a lot of people drove motorcycles over there, and you go ahead, put a stick inside of the spokes when you stop at a red light, and just as the light changes and people start driving off, You get close and you shove it in through the spokes. Well, the tire's rotating, so it's going to push in through the spokes, and as soon as it pushes in through the spokes, you may be able to get it in maybe an inch or two. Well, it breaks. Well, if you got a nail and it's an extra sharpened nail on the end, guess what? It breaks, and when it breaks, it flies back up towards the tire. And if you're lucky and you got it in there just right, it's going to penetrate that tire, and that bike's going to go down. And if you've ever been in Vietnam, or if you ever see any pictures, traffic are bumper to bumper, and that person is going to get hit many times before they realize that that motorcycle even went down. A lot of times there's been instances where you didn't even know that you hit one of those motorcycles. So I know that, you know, from the 4 years that I was...
When you guys got off the plane, so the colonel warned the guy that was speaking, and he said don't talk anymore. But when you got off the plane, you were all quiet, and what? You took everything.
No. This even before we landed, after we fueled up and we took on off, before we landed again, they went ahead and gave us the bag, and they told us at that time that we were going on the recovery of a U.S. aircraft.
Okay.
That it had gone down in a country that was not friendly towards the U.S.
Okay.
And, you know, a lot of us was wondering, for example, like myself, what am I needed for to be there? But they were trying to make it clear that, you know, there's something special about this plane. But it was a U.S. aircraft, and they believed that everybody on the aircraft was in fact dead. And one person asked, what was so special? Well, you'll find out when you get there. But they said by virtue of the sensitivity of the mission, everybody has to go ahead, take everything, their wallet, any papers they have, everything out of their pockets, and put them in these little plastic bags. And the plastic bags were about the size of a large sandwich bag, is what we call them today. But you had a little piece of tape on it. You put your rank and your name on it. And that actually stayed on the aircraft. Now remember, this is a commercial aircraft. It's not a U.S. government aircraft. You know, it's a commercial aircraft.
Wow.
But that aircraft, we were going to go back on that aircraft. Because, see, that aircraft never left the United States officially.
Okay. One real quick question. Are we still talking about a rogue group? We're not talking about the Air Force or Army or anything, right? This is a separate group.
The three folks that was there, as far as I know, they were not, you know...
Anything to do...
Any Army, Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard. They're that small nucleus that control this.
So then when you got off, what did you see? And how did the entities come to you?
Well, first we landed.
Yeah.
And we landed in an air base, and you know, the base we landed at, it was all dark. I mean, when we went down, I remember looking out the window. When I looked out, I saw, I don't know how many looked like bonfires. And everything else was pitch black.
Okay.
Then when we started to come in to land, we had to bank. Then I knew, okay, that right there, I saw the blue or bluish purple lights and the red marking lights and all that. So we went on, we landed. As soon as we landed, it was obvious we were in a country that was an Oriental country, because I got to see Oriental people around there. But at the same time, we didn't know where we were at, because we landed at the far end of the runway. And there was a chopper there waiting for us. So we got on the helicopter, and that was a UH-1 Huey Slick. And we took on off in that helicopter. Well, there was another helicopter that also took off with us, which was the same thing. But they set up what, for lack of a better term, they set up a little camp where we were supposed to be there till people got there to go and take everything out as far as the aircraft, take them apart and everything. And there'd be other people come in. But when we landed, we went ahead, we walked maybe 5 miles before we got to the
You walked?
back.
It was in the dark?
Yep. Well, it was starting to get day. And by the time we got there, it was daylight. So, you know, we're looking around. I'm looking around. I'm from the front of the aircraft. It was the first time I ever saw a B-52 up close. And I'm thinking, I always thought they were much bigger than this. I know that sounds crazy, because a B-52 is a big aircraft. But for some odd reason, I was saying to myself, I always thought they were bigger than this. And I started to walk around the aircraft. When I got back towards the back of the craft, then we had some of these little gray entities coming out.
Gray entities.
Gray entities.
These aren't the guys. Would you describe them more though? You said that.
Like a Pillsbury Doughboy. Like
Yeah. Okay.
They were not, string bean.
Yeah.
They were roughly 3.5, 4 foot tall. Essentially the same spindly arms and legs.
You saw them, or did everybody
No,
see them?
I saw them.
Okay.
And I can't show you how I had my M16, but I had my sling on it, and I had it slung down like this.
Yeah.
And when I came up and they came out, I mean, it's just like what I said, like trying to pronounce it exact.
So they couldn't pronounce your name, but they knew you.
Well, they pronounced it Clifford, which was trying to make sure they were getting all the syllables there. I say Clifford, right?
Right.
So if I say Clifford fast enough, it's not broken in two. Well, it was Clifford. What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here.
They said that?
They said that.
No, was that telepathic transfer?
Yeah, but like I'm talking to you,
Yeah.
that's the way I was hearing it.
But
no
you
one
didn't see
else-
their mouths.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
And, the head was going like this.
It was questioning.
Yeah, going back and forth like this and going down a little. But always looking at me. So,
And what did you do? What did you answer?
for lack of a better term, I freaked out and panicked because I had other troops there. And I don't know why I said VC, VC. I don't know why I did
You
that.
called them VC. Oh my goodness gracious.
And maybe because that's what I really wanted it to be.
Right.
And remember, we had no way of knowing where we were at. We didn't know we were in Vietnam. And actually we were in Cambodia.
Okay.
So I went ahead and brought my M16 up and started to shoot, but the bullets were having no effect.
Oh my goodness.
And everybody else started to shoot, but it was having no effect. But
if everybody else started to shoot, everybody else saw them also?
everybody else did see it.
Oh my goodness. Go ahead.
So what we were told was that they were rebels and that they were not friendlies. And we were told we killed X number of them. We didn't kill anything. The only thing we did, we shot down some trees. But there was this little stream. When we got back to the stream, we crossed over the stream. They didn't come across the stream. They followed us all the way to that stream. That stream was about 1/4 of a mile. Well, there, the person I always call the colonel, he went ahead and had the tents set up there because we were still going to be there and we were going to go back there. And for some odd reason, there was a week that we stayed also. And we stayed in a little village there. The people never even saw Americans before. We were the first Americans they ever saw. And there was only a 14-year-old girl and her mother who could speak English. But they didn't speak English till it was almost time for us to leave. And
Okay,
before we
well,
left.
going back to the entities, did you see them anymore?
No. When we went back, there was nothing there.
So they just said to you, Clifford, what are you doing here? But they didn't, from what I
The
understood...
key thing is they were saying, Clifford, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. I understand why they were saying that now.
Why?
Because I'm retired, 22 years in the service.
So
Their intent was
so
not
they
me.
know, they follow you. They follow you. They know.
Right. The government wanted me in the military. The government was going to have me work officially, unofficially on UFOs.
Okay.
Now, what did they know?
What did the beings know?
ETs knew this would happen. They knew if I got in the military.
Do you feel those ETs were hostile?
No. Not
What
at
were
all.
they doing there, Cliff? Just tell us.
I think that they were concerned and checking out to see what we were doing. They don't have a concept of war. They cannot understand why rational, intelligent entities that humans are supposed to be, we would do this to one another. And I mean, when they saw what was going on in Fort, they've always been here. But we go ahead and say, oh, well, these are superstitions of ancient people. No, it's not superstitious. Superstition beliefs are myths of ancient societies. They have actually had interaction. Today, it is very dangerous for them to have that interaction. Today, they have to go ahead and have that interaction on a very limited scale.
That
And
interaction mean with humanity in a very
absolutely.
elementary
And
scale
of
because
course-
what they would expect is exactly what you did. You took out your rifle and began shooting, right?
Well, we are going to do that.
Oh, you didn't do that.
No, we are going to do this.
We are going to do this.
Yes, because that is an atypical human reaction. We react violently and hostile against the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And here again, I'd already had contact before. But here again, the circumstances of what I was seeing, the environment we were in. I mean,
You
come on,
were.
they didn't even look like VC. Why was I calling them VC?
Just point of reference. You had no reference.
Yeah, I mean that's the only enemy I knew that we had at that time.
Yeah.
So you had seen beings like that before, though.
But see, it wasn't supposed to be there. What was going on there?
So what do you think was going on there?
I have no idea.
Do you think they helped bring that plane down?
No, not at all.
Not shoot it down, but actually glide it down.
I do believe that they went ahead and had it set down
Okay.
so they could survey the damage and find out what we were. I mean, they were already watching what was going on. That I mean, they were spectators of the Second World War, the worst war we've had in our history. They have seen this throughout history, but now we have come upon a new decade. We were now doing things differently. Now, remember, this is a B-52. What were most B-52s carrying at that time?
Bombs.
Nuclear weapons.
Yeah. Isn't it, what flew out of here in Roswell for the atomic bomb? What was the plane that flew out of here with the Enola Gay?
That was a B-29.
Okay.
And we went from the B-29 to the B-36. From the B-36, we experimented with a couple of other craft, but then we came up with the B-47. Then we went to the B-52. In between, we had the B-58.
Tell me something. I remember the Vietnam incident. You're saying something about a cave that was transparent.
That was at close. That was at Dewey Body, close to.
That was a second incident.
That was one of the more significant incidences.
And that, you said the cave was transparent and they could see out the fighting. They could see outside the cave. Or you
when
could see.
when we were inside, yeah, we could see outside, and we were telling them to dig, and we'd laugh about it. Even did Dad laugh. Because you'd see them go dig in like they're hitting just air. Then come up, and when they throw the shovel over to the side, there's dirt there. Where did the dirt come from? And we knew that we were much deeper inside, but yes. Now,
Yeah, because is that a second incident? I've mixed those two together.
that is a separate incident.
See, that's what happened with your first account. I mixed those two together. Was that a before or after?
That was
incident?
after, because that was
That
after,
was
I
after.
already got to Vietnam.
So that was a second incident where you saw you were told to dig a what? You were told to dig. You went in there to dig, or were you part of the firefight?
No, we were going into this cave. Mm-hmm. We weren't told to dig or nothing. We saw people outside. That was our people.
Yeah.
That was, for lack of a better term, I'll say a search and destroy.
Okay.
Because normally with Dewey Baudin, we had the top and the bottom, and the NVAVC had the middle. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times they'd overrun the top.
Okay.
But that was also controlled most of the time by the NSA because it was a signal location, which dealt with signal intelligence, and the NSA had control of it.
Yeah, but so you said you went in and you could see your people, but was that because the cave was transparent?
Well, one side of the cave was like a big screen,
Right.
and we could see them walking like they were walking on
But
air.
didn't you ask yourself that was a little bit strange?
Well, everything in that was strange, young'un.
Okay.
But initially, it was plausible to us, okay? Because
And it was probably, in other words, you thought it was some advanced technology that we had.
No, we didn't think it was our technology.
You didn't?
We did think that it was communist technology.
Okay.
And there were rumors floating around that the communists were planning to go ahead and use the bubonic plague as a form of biological warfare against U.S. and Allied forces there. So when we went in there, we thought, okay, maybe this right here is proof. Maybe this is what we're really supposed to be looking for. But there were a whole lot of strange things that was happening to begin with. After we got closer and closer back in there, we found ourselves where our radios wouldn't work. And underground, that's not uncommon, okay?
Okay.
But what was uncommon was we had one place where we had a Prick 25, and maybe less than 100 feet on up into the cave. Again, we had another radio, but they couldn't pick up, not even static.
Okay.
So what we did, we got to where we could go ahead, use the radio to reach outside, had a relay outside at the mouth of the entrance of the cave, and we had a runner from there on in. So the way we communicated was back and forth by runners.
Okay.
And when we got into this one big opening, which there were already rumors where, and some of them I know to be true, they had huge trucks and everything else inside some of these caverns that the communists had dug out and made in the made in the South, in preparation for a long, protracted war in the South. So, you know, we figured, okay, this is what it was, until we saw the entities.
Okay, describe those. Those guys you said look like frogs or something.
They had faces that, like, they were. The color, it's hard to state. It was like a grayish brown or a brownish gray. But, yeah, they looked more aquatic. And their eyes would remind you of a frog. Their mouth would remind you of a frog.
Really?
And
They had nose? Did they have a nose too?
2 little slits for the nose.
And did they have scales?
Not that I can think of. I mean,
Were they
the,
long?
The skin was rough. Now, what they did have was strange fingers on. I want to say there's suction cups.
Yeah,
on the,
Colonel
but
Corso
I
described
can't
that.
say that that's the case.
Yeah,
because I really.
yeah. He described some kind of beings like that.
People want descriptions.
Yeah.
And when these things are going on, you're not. Gee, I'm going to be talking to
Yeah, I
grandkids
know,
about this, so let me
I
get a
know.
really good picture of this.
Yeah, I know.
That doesn't happen.
No, I know.
And
Were they scary to you?
well, they didn't say anything. But we started to go ahead and we started to shoot. Well, when we started to shoot, now this is so hard to explain because remember, there's no lights in there.
Right.
But it's like it is right now. You know, we can see one another, we see what's around us, but no lights. We know we have the sunlight and all this, but no lights. Temperature was perfect. Wasn't too cold, wasn't too hot. And this was Vietnam. And it was a hot night outside. But we went ahead, and when this happened, when we started to shoot, it just, like, you turn on a light bulb, and you look at the light bulb, and, you know, you see how you can't see through it. Well, that's like it is. I mean, it was like being in glowing milk almost, right? Only it wasn't fluid. You could hold your hand out like that. You couldn't see your hand. And everybody found their way back. Well, I thought I'd been in there only for, you know, a couple of minutes, and that my people pulled me out. Because at some point, I went down. And when I went down, I had my eye injured, but then everything went back to normal. Well, then it was just the entities. And they went ahead and they told me that they had to take care of my eye. If not, I'd lose it. So I'm lying there. Then, you know, next thing I knew, I'm outside. Well, I figured that my people pulled me out, and the other thing was just an illusion. I have medical records where I can show you that they stated that an insect sprayed into my eye and cut the corona of my eye. And I wore a patch for well over a week on that eye, and it was this left eye. Now, can you tell me an insect that can do that? I have no idea, and I've searched. I have no idea.
So did your people pull you out, or you just found yourself out?
I was never actually told how it happened.
And
They told me when I went ahead, and the guy we always called the colonel,
yeah.
I asked him, how'd you guys get me out of there? He says, we didn't.
Oh, he said we didn't.
Yeah. So, my impression, they had no idea how I got out of there.
But the beings helped you. But did they call you by name also?
At that time, I would not be truthful if I said I remember them calling me by name. 'Cause
Okay.
No, I don't remember. I was in a lot of pain.
Yeah. Did any of those bullets hit those beings?
If they did, they had no effect.
They had no effect. And those beings were not hostile.
And they were not hostile. We're always going to be hostile.
Well, in other words, we're always going to shoot at weirdo-looking things. We're always going to shoot at them, no matter.
That is the human nature, the human psychic of us.
Yes.
If it's unknown, we fear it. Now, it's been about 20 years now. We no longer will send an aircraft up to shoot at a UFO. But I guarantee you, every pilot that comes into contact with a UFO for the first time, he's afraid, and his first impression is to open fire. But they're trained to wait until they are given instructions to fire, no matter what the fear factor is in them.
Okay,
So-
Clifford, I want to finish this segment by your feelings about the beings. You've described different kinds of beings. Do you feel that there's any kind of imminent invasion, that they want to take over, or do you feel they're just observing?
I do not believe that there is any fear that they are ever going to invade us. If that was going to be the case, it already happened. Now, that being said, are there rogue elements out there? Sure there are, just like there's rogue elements in our society. We, as a society, a civilized society, an advanced civilized society, do we really want to go and take over other countries just to rule? Surely that isn't the American way of life. Surely civilized people around the world, that's not the way they really feel. And these entities they look different than us in many, many ways. Some look very similar to us. But the situation is, the intelligence, the essence of being an intelligent species is there. And that essence mandates that you can live at peace with the universe. And they're no different. Now, the rogue elements, no. They go ahead and they try to impose their will on others. Do we have that out there? We probably do.
But you haven't had any experience with that.
But if we ever had that happen,
Mm-hmm.
and once again I'll say, if it should ever happen here,
Mm-hmm.
we would get assistance from outside, because there's no way we could go ahead and really stop them from taking us over.
So you're saying there is a group that are looking out for us, and that's the ones you've had contact with.
Yeah, well, there's several groups, but there's one group that has contact with me, and
And you have a name in your biography, and I forgot what
Corona.
his Corona.
For some odd reason, he always wanted me to understand it was spelled with a K.
Okay, and so he wanted, and Corona is always with you, more or less. I mean, always with you, knows what you're doing.
Oh yeah, like they say that they pick up on one person, they follow that person throughout life, and they're with that person long enough to mourn the death of that person.
Okay, is Corona human-like, or is Corona gray?
I wish I could say he was a gray. He's green.
Okay.
And
is he small? Is he a small?
No, he's about 5 foot tall.
He's about 5 foot.
Mhm.
And is he person-like? I mean, he looks like a person, only he's got different skin, or
No, once again, he has that rough texture skin,
Yeah.
not scales.
Okay, just rough texture.
He's got the eyes, the big round black eyes,
Okay,
but like teardrops with the points pointing in like this, and the wider, rounder part on the outside.
Okay, does Corona have pupils, or is it all one big pupil?
All I've ever seen was just the black part.
Okay,
And he has a sense of humor,
okay,
sometimes misguided.
yeah.
I remember the time that I was saying, how do I know you're not a figment of my imagination? And he went ahead, can your imagination do this? And took a cup or a plate, threw it down on the ground, and smashed all the heck. And I said, what are you doing? Of course, the person I was with came in and asked, why did I just throw the plate on the floor? I said, I didn't. There it is, how to get there. And said, now remember, they can't see me.
Well, tell me, did he have a purpose, or did he give you a message for either humanity or yourself?
But essentially, from what I've gathered from the time that I've been there, is that they're actually trying to understand how we really work. And see, you don't go and say, take me to the head of your government.
Yeah.
I mean, heaven forbid, take a look at the United States government right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if our government was a family, a family unit, they would be the most dysfunctional family in the written history of mankind.
I agree.
And, the whole situation is, you can't say take me to your, because if you take me to your leader, all I'm going to hear is what your leaders will want me to hear. Now, how do you find out about a society? You live among them. And you get to know the people. And you get to understand the people. So what they do, they'll go ahead, they will hook up with one person. And they will follow that person out throughout life. But, they choose who that person is. And normally it starts very, very early in life, very young. So I always tell people, if you have a child that says, I have friends, and you can't see them, and you go ahead and say, well, those are just imaginary friends, and they tell you, no, Mom, or no, Dad, they're not, they're real, then you might want to go ahead and think about what might be going on with that child's life. Because it could possibly be the child is actually telling the truth and he's not suffering from any psychosis. It might be that he is one of those, or she is one of those that has been chosen. And I think I told you about when I killed the bird. I always saw them as children. Mm-hmm. When I drowned that little bird, that broke my heart. I mean, I took this child away from its mother and father, and its mother and father would grieve over the loss of their child. This is the way, in my child's mind, I saw the destruction of that bird. And I cried for over a week over that. Corona came to me, first time ever, being able to see what he looked like. And I mean, really panicking. I mean, he was freaking out, I was freaking out. And saying, why do I feel the way I feel? Why do you feel the way you feel? Because you're feeling the way you feel is the way I feel. What is going on here? And I mean...
In other words, Corona could empathize with your...
big time. And I mean, that's the only way I can put it out. He was freaking out. Me, as, a 6-year-old kid, I was freaking out. And, of course, I ran to try to find a place to hide. My mom was in the hospital, so my Aunt Wynn was taking care of us. And my Aunt Wynn couldn't control me. And I went and I hid behind there was a space between the refrigerator and I think it was the sink. I hid there. Now, there's a wall behind me, okay? So I'm all the way back there as far as you can get. But it was like I felt this bony hand like just scratching me on top of the head, as though to say, you can run, but you can't hide. And that's what I did. I decided, okay, this isn't working, let me go find someplace else. So I went running again. And that's when my aunt finally stopped me, put me in a chair, tried to have me sit there, and she had a fight on her hands, because I did not want to sit in that chair. I needed to get away. So later I got to calm down, and later on I got to see Corona again, but this time as I saw him before as a child, right? And said, look, you're too young for us to explain to you what's going on, but, we're not ghosts. We're not meant for everyone to see. And I remember, are you a fairy? And no, not a fairy. But as time goes on, you'll begin to understand why we're here. But I can tell you this. Hopefully you will learn some things from me. But I will learn a lifetime from you. That was the first time I was told why he was there with me and why he wasn't going to go away and why I'd always have him there and points in my life.
And somebody knew that this was happening.
Somebody knew that was happening, and that person was personified by a person that I only knew as Captain Brown, who showed up when I was about 7 or 8 years old. Showed up in 1957, because that's when I saw my first UFO, up close and personal. When I saw that UFO, I then knew that there was something in the universe, that we weren't alone. That was at broad daylight, about 10 in the morning, there in Portsmouth, Ohio. And I went to, maybe a couple weeks later, True Magazine came out with a UFO magazine. Of course, True Magazine being considered a men's magazine, the druggists there would not go ahead and let me go ahead and buy the magazine. Even though it was about UFOs, True, associated with men's magazine, it wasn't to be sold to a 7, 8-year-old kid. So Captain Brown shows up, and when he shows up, he says, "Oh, you have an interest in UFOs? So do I." So he told the druggist, "I'll take 2 of these." And he asked, "Do you like root beer floats?" I said, "I never had a root beer float." So he says, "Well, we'll try it. If you don't like it, you don't have to drink it." So I went ahead, got the root beer float, had my first root beer float. I liked it. Then he went over and talked to my mother. To this day, I don't have any idea what he talked to my mother about. But then he talked to my father. And from that time on, we struck up a relationship. And it was about March 1968. And it was in the newspaper, one of the Columbus newspapers, I know for a fact.
You were living in Columbus, Ohio?
I was living at a place called South Bloomfield, Ohio.
Okay.
It's close to Lockwood.
So were you... Oh, okay. And did you... Is that where you were born and that's where you grew up?
No, I was born in Portsmouth, Ohio, and that's
Okay.
where I grew up.
Okay.
The last year or so of my high school, I was there at South Bloomfield, in a place that people say doesn't exist, called Asheville, Ohio, which was 2 miles from the back gate of
Right,
Lockburn Air Force Base.
Or Laughlin, okay.
Lockburn.
Lockburn, okay.
So it's called Rickenbacker Field now. But yes, it does exist, and that's where I finished high.
Okay, you were in high school when you found out you were rejected from military service?
It was about November 1967. I went to, we had a recruiter come to our high school, talked to us about going into the military, talked about what was at that time called the delayed entry program. So I went ahead, applied to go into the military, went to Fort Hays, there in Columbus, Ohio, to take my entrance exam. I passed all the written tests, the flying collars, everything except for the medical physical. I was then told that I was considered 4F, didn't ever have to worry about going into the military, and I was permanently rejected for military service. Upon completion of getting my high school diploma, I went back home in June of '68 to Portsmouth, Ohio. Got a letter from my draft board stating that they wished to reevaluate me. I went to Ashland, Kentucky, rather. Ashland, Kentucky, where they had the MEP station. I took all the written tests over again, once again, passed all the written tests.
Passed it very high level?
Highly. I mean, I was selected for OCS if I wanted to go. Officers training school.
Okay.
So, all of that, but I still had the medical problem. The captain came out and says, "Well, we'll be sending you home shortly." There was a full bird colonel who was there at the time, and he told the captain, "Go take your family, go to Camden Park," which was an amusement center there in Huntington, West Virginia. And I'll go ahead and I'll finish up with the medicals. He called me in. He asked me, "Do you really, truly want to get in the military?" And I said, "Sir, I have all these people, friends even, that don't believe in the Vietnam War. Me, I believe I need to do something to help my country. And I believe in it, and I can say I believe in it, but I don't have to pay, no admission." And yeah, I'd love to go because I feel I have a moral obligation to serve my country. He says, I'll give you that chance. I don't know what they'd have done if I'd have said, oh, I don't have to go in? Oh, thank God. That's great. They would have got me in because I honestly, to this day, firmly believe he was there to make sure I got into the military. And once again, because of what I was involved with, what was happening to me in my life, they wanted me in there. And when it comes to interfacing with our visitors, I'm telling you right now, they don't have a school they can train that. They have to have people that they have to pick out where our visitors have chose them very early on in life to be a part of whatever this is that's going on. And one of the big factors that they're concerned, we do it even now. When you see right now where there's this big push, oh no, please don't tax oil, the oil industry. Please don't do that. And what did we find out just a year ago? That they're using substandard material to go ahead and sink their wells into the ground, which ultimately can lead to the contamination of our drinking water. And we always take these shortcuts, never thinking about the long-term effects it's going to have on humanity as a whole. So what are they concerned about? What is their bigger interest? In what we are doing to ourselves.
Whose bigger interest is that?
The bigger interest of big business, for one.
Okay.
They think, okay, it's not going to affect us in our lifetime.
Okay.
They'll find a way to correct it by the time our children get older.
Right.
And that's not always going to be the case.
So they're using short-term strategies.
Yes.
And you're
it's
saying
affecting us long-term.
it's affecting us long-term, and this was a shortcut that they took to understand why our visitors were here. They took the shortcut by just indoctrinating certain people to do this job.
When we set out to become intergalactic travelers, and that's our dream right now.
To go into the immense.
Absolutely. And we're going to do that. We're going to visit other solar systems, not just stay within our solar system. When we do that, we threaten other ecological systems on other planets. And we will do this indiscriminately. So yes, they do have a concern on what we are doing. That's why I always say, in order for us to become more, or to become intergalactic, to get there to where we really can do it without them stopping us, we have to become more spiritual. If we don't become more, you have to worry what happens to the other guy. If you don't care what happens to the other guy, guess what? They're not going to let you out there. And it's just like I've said before, our visitors will let themselves be destroyed just so they wouldn't hurt other intelligent living creatures.
Because they have a different ethics.
The ethics is big time different there.
It's more of a collective caring.
Yes.
They care about other people. They are not individual, competitive, selfish.
Other entities. We have prejudices. Hey, look how it used to be back in the 50s. And even before that, back, in the 1700s, 1600s, 2,000 years ago, it was okay to own other human beings as slaves.
Yeah.
They were different. And sometimes if they were the same, but different nationality or different religious groups, things of this sort, or if they were conquered people. And the whole situation is, slavery has never been right. It has never been moral. And every society has known this. But there have been societies that have accepted it as a norm. Fortunately, we have spiritually evolved to that point where it is an evil that will not be tolerated by civilized society.
Do you think humanity will ever evolve spiritually, Cliff?
If we don't, we will destroy ourselves.
So we have no choice. We have to evolve with our technology also, right?
Yeah, you have to evolve with your technology or you fall victim to your technology. Remember that movie I told you about, the 1958? Power of Decision?
Yeah.
That movie, the Strategic Air Command existed for two purposes. One was to ensure that it served as a deterrent, that it would deter war by making any country that planned to attack the United States with nuclear weapons understand that there would be no survival, that we would survive long enough with enough power to utterly annihilate them. Now, in the movie, the Soviet Union gets to the point where they feel we can take out America and not really have to suffer any real damage. So it shows the fallacy of the first part of Strategic Air Command. They failed. They make it clear that we failed our initial assignment. We did not deter nuclear war. The scary thing is they had another mission, and that was the total annihilation of whatever country, whatever force attacked the United States would not survive to enjoy it, that we would bring them to their knees. And we were going to do this by dropping nuclear bombs here, only we had more toys than they would have. So in the scenario there, yeah, we won. And of course, all you see in the film is where the bombs hit. Well, you have what's called radioactive fallout. Now, all you have to do after you have won the war, which, by the way, the war ran 36 hours. In 36 hours, the madness was over.
And everybody was dead.
Oh, no, you had people living. But now all they have to do is survive.
Survive
for the next 12 years.
And
we already knew, okay, the canned food, we wash it off.
Yeah.
Because the gamma radiation is the thing you're really worried about. But it cannot penetrate the tin. Alpha radiation was the other part. Now, beta radiation, forget it. It can penetrate, depending on its level, as much as 3 foot of lead, which is why it's really nice to have 6 foot of lead when you're dealing with anything like that. But they go ahead, they hit up on it, but guess what? Anything that's growing worldwide, it's no longer edible. Oh, and your livestock, forget that, because they're all contaminated.
So in other words, it was not really a deterrent because the game is game over. The game is over. Game over.
We essentially would destroy ourselves by what? Our technology.
Yeah. Can I ask you, going back to you really quickly, is how old were you after you did the 18-year-old entry into the Army when you had to do your first assignment of the several assignments? How old were you and how many years after that?
About 19. But now remember, they
1 year. That's 1 year after you entered.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they'd already decided. I even got to take stuff home, and if you'd go back and talk to some of the kids I grew up with, they were amazed. I went back home and I was telling them, hey, I'm working in UFOs.
Oh my God. So was Indiatown Gap, Pennsylvania when you were 19?
That was when I was 19. Actually, that was one of the first times that I walked up to where there were entities. And of course they were all dead. And
were you alone?
That right now.
And you were alone?
Oh, no, young man. We were beat.
No, but I mean, you were alone when you walked up, or were there?
Oh, yeah. If anything was going to happen, they were only going to lose one person.
They were going to lose you. And those were all dead.
Yes.
Okay. And
I mean, right from the get-go, I figured, but my mind was telling me it could be a man-made craft, could be a man-made.
It was one of our things.
But as soon as I got there and I got to look inside and saw what was lying outside of the cockpit, that's when I immediately started. I need an officer up here.
Okay. Did you ever go to one that was halfway embedded and did crash where there's anything alive inside?
Oh, yeah.
You did?
Oh, yeah.
Can you ever talk, about how many you dealt with, or, I mean, just legally without... Yeah.
There's no way you're legally going to talk about it.
No, but
they
that's
don't care
okay.
what you talk
Okay.
about. They care about what you can prove.
Okay. All right, so how
Let's
many...
say there was a film, okay?
Yeah.
And you brought that film out. Now, they will kill to keep that film from getting out. There are things that we will go against the law on.
Yeah.
And let me give you a good example. Remember the terrorist that just got killed?
Mm-hmm.
He was a U.S. citizen.
Right.
Right from this state. There was
Right.
another U.S. citizen with him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, don't get me wrong. I disagree with Ron Paul. I'm darn glad they took that sucker out.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, if we have an airplane up there, an airliner,
Mm-hmm.
and we know that terrorists have control of that airliner,
Mm-hmm.
and that airliner is going to hit some building, we don't know where,
Mm-hmm.
but going to try to kill other Americans,
Mm-hmm.
the standing order right now is once we confirm that that plane is going to strike a target within the continental United States or any place else, there's a standing order. You will direct fighter aircraft to shoot that aircraft down over the least populated area possible to minimize the loss of life. That is a standing order. Ron Paul knows that. He even voted for that to be the case. And it was a closed-door vote, so maybe I shouldn't have even said that. But it exists, okay? And Congress concurs. Now, I'm not a fan of Obama, but I agree with Obama because he concurs also. Now, why do you do that? To save lives. To minimize the loss of life. The gentleman that we went ahead, dare I say gentleman, that we went ahead and took his life and the life of the other guy. He's already cost us American lives. In classified reports, we know he did this.
Yeah.
Now, Ron Paul, for political reasons, goes out and says, oh, gee, we shouldn't have done that. He was a U.S. citizen.
Oh, no. Okay, so let's not get into
Oh,
that.
no. This is important. This goes back to your question.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to illustrate here is that the crimes he was committing was sufficient enough that we would violate our own laws
Okay.
and take an American life.
Yes.
What he was doing was statistical and was horrific. Therefore,
It's ethically.
no,
Yes.
as far as we're concerned, it's ethically
Right.
righteous to violate
Yeah.
our own laws and
Right.
take an American life, to look for that person just to take his life, to put him out of commission. When it comes to UFOs, we have no idea what world reaction is going to be when we say, hey, look, not only have we made contact with extraterrestrial intelligent life that is even more intelligent than us, so vastly intelligent, we're about like, say, ants, okay, intellectually. That they are there, but not only have we made contact with them, folks, they have been here and been among us for millennia. There's nothing to worry about. They're not evil. They're not going to destroy us. How many people do you believe will buy that? Remember what I told you human reaction is? Fear of the unknown. We know what that human reaction, it's a typical, all of us have it. All of us are going to react the same way because we are human. So the whole situation is, I'm fortunate. I've had the contact where the fear factor isn't there no more. The fear factor of how we're going to do it and what the outcome is going to be if we do it wrong, that's still there.
Do you think the people should know?
I think the people should know. And I think that there are a lot of people out there that do know. But see, I also know the dark side of the coin. I know people who have lost their families because we decided to go ahead and lie about, no, there was nothing to it. The two police officers who in, 1967 chased the UFO for 86 miles there in Ohio, look how their lives changed. The one that they stated, which any idiot can see that right there is not a firefighter's suit, there in Alabama, where the police officer decided not to shoot at it, but took a picture of it, and of course other people were seeing it, and it looks very similar to the Pascagoula 1973 UFO photograph, which, remember, this one right here was in 73 also. And
That's a
it was in
Michelin
Alabama.
Man type being, right?
Huh?
That was a Michelin Man type being.
Robotic.
Robotic.
Yeah, but I guess you could say that. But it had like the point,
The pointy nose, yeah.
and the ears. But the whole situation is, it was very reminiscent of that. Now all that we have from Pascagoula are drawings. But here we have a picture. But the guy took the picture. Even people, oh, he was fooled. And of course the debunkers, and everyone's a debunker until they see a UFO. It goes back to, we will accept the facts if they are within our paradigm. If they conflict with our paradigm, we no longer accept the facts. But the situation is, in this instance, he had a picture. His life was destroyed. Hey, wait a minute, he was a cop, he had a gun. Why didn't he try to shoot the person? Well, now there would have been a moral dilemma had he shot the person, and it actually turned out to be somebody dressed up in a suit. But because the person didn't run away, walked away, and he didn't go after the person because he felt threatened. What he saw in the picture, I'm sorry, I have yet to see a firefighter's suit, even when they try to put it up there, you know, the flame retardant suit that they wear in fighting aircraft fires. I have yet to see any similarity into any of the suits that they have, to include the now illegal asbestos suits.